I participated in 2 battles, was wounded 2 times, never seriously, never lost a day's work. I survived the Bataan Death March and 3.5 years in various prison camps in the Philippines, Taiwan, and Japan. I retired 1 August 1952 in the grade of Chief Master Sergeant, 29 years service, 8 infantry, and 21 Air Force. Well, after World War II, I enlisted what was then the Army Air Corps. There were about 30 of us from the 31st Infantry that ended up at Marchfield, California. And believe me, we were basket cases. At that time, PTSD was unknown. Today it is a fact, and it's acknowledged to be a fact. Anyway, we broke every rule and regulation at the base. We even broke some of the laws at the city of Riverside. Eventually, most of us, including yours truly, were busted down to private. And so one day, I looked up in the sky and I said, Lord, is anything worse going to happen to me? Then I got married. But believe me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Gloria and I, as of last March, we've been married for 72 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And she's been at my side during every one of those years. And together we fought and won the battle against PTSD.
Wow.
Amazing. How many people did they lose? How many men?
22,000.
22,000.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, when the bullets are flying, all over, my wounds were not too bad. The first one was during the Battle of Bucay Hacienda. It was 13 days and nights, and on the 13th day, the reason we were fighting there because the Philippine Army, they were on the main line and we were in reserve, and the Japanese broke through the line and we had to go to counterattack. And on the 13th day, we had orders. Well, the Philippine Army pulled back and made another main line of resistance, and we were going to go back again into reserve position. And I remember I was just standing up and I just heard it, we were going to go back, and a Japanese mortar shell ended up not too far from me, knocked me flat on my face, crushed my helmet completely, and next thing, a couple of hours later, I was walking along with a man on the east side of me,
Wow.
That was my worst one. On 3 April, when the Japanese started their last offensive, that was Good Friday. I think it was the next day or the day after, we were in retreat, and we sat down to take a break, and there was a little drainage ditch, and I plopped my butt into it, and just my legs were sticking out. 2 artillery shells landed in our position, wham, wham, and just the shrapnel just scraped my leg, drew just enough of blood from my second furlong. And
Wow.
anyway, killed our commander, and let's see, there was a Corporal Lawson, and a couple of guys, I can't remember their name. I remember, there was a Sergeant Keys, his hand was completely blown off, I remember him, yeah.
Wow.
No mama, no papa, no uncles, no mama, no papa, no aunts, no uncles, no guns, no artillery pieces, and nobody gives a damn. When I enlisted in 38, I weighed 132 pounds, and I was 5'3½", but when I went to the recruiting station, the recruiter says, raise up a little bit. He says, oh yeah, good, 5'4½". So after I got liberated, I weighed about 180 pounds, I think. But that wasn't too bad, because from 132, take somebody from 200 pounds going down to 80 and 90 pounds.
Where were you at in Japan as a prisoner of war?
3.5 years.
Where?
The Philippines and Taiwan, and the last year, well, I'll come to that again. So
Okay.
anyway, let's see. Cabanatuan was the main prison camp in the
Yes.
Philippines. So
Oh yeah.
it was divided into two parts: the main part and the hospital side. The men from Corregidor didn't have a death march. They
Right.
were ferried across the bay, marched through the streets of Manila, and taken to Cabanatuan.
Why?
And they were on the main side. And by the time the Bataan people got there, they were pretty well organized. So when we got there, we were put on the hospital side. And believe me, it was chaos there for a while until
bet.
we got organized. The first 6 months, 3,000 men died at Cabanatuan. And see, I was on a 40-man work detail on the hospital side until July of 1943 when I was transferred to the main side. Early October 1943, I was on a 500-man detail. Before we come to that, early on, details were sent to to Bataan, the airfields, salvaging material for the Japanese war effort. And also, work details were sent to Taiwan, Japan, and Manchuria to work in mines, factories, and shipyards to perform slave labor. The ships taking them to those places were the hell ships.
Right.
5,280 Americans went down to the bottom of the sea on those ships. Anyway,
Dang.
I was on a 500-man detail sent to an area near Las Piñas, a little town about 40 miles from Manila. And there for the next 12 months, we built an airfield complete with runways, drainage ditches, and revetments for the storage of aircraft. After 1 year, early in October 1944, we were working at the end of the runway when one of the men began yelling and pointing towards Manila. There above the sky, American and Japanese aircraft in aerial combat.
Wow.
Later, we found out that this was the time that General MacArthur was returning to the Philippines. He was landing on the island of Leyte.
Wow.
Next morning, I was one of 700 men crammed in the forward and aft holds of the Japanese ship, the Haromaru.
Okay.
We were part of a 9-ship convoy with Japanese destroyer escort headed for Japan. We no sooner left the harbor than we came under American submarine attack. The hold was covered. We remained in complete darkness, and all we heard was exploding depth charges from the Japanese destroyers and the constant swerving and zigzagging of our ship. We ran all around the South China Sea for 18 horrendous days and nights, and being chased by American submarines. We finally pulled into Hong Kong. The reason at the time I didn't know it was Hong Kong, but several years ago when I gave a talk at White Sands, one of the men approached me and showed me the picture of the ship docked in Hong Kong, and he said his dad had been on that ship also. Yeah. Anyway, when we docked, I happened to be by the ladder. The Japanese guard motioned for 2 men to come to topside. I scrambled up the ladder, grabbed the water hose, poured it on myself, drank and drank and drank, filled my 2 canteens, hooked them on my belt. Then I began filling water bottles and canteens as they were sent up from the hold, you know. This went on for about 3 or 4 hours. Finally, air raid sirens went off. Here comes American aircraft from somewhere in China looking for targets of opportunity.
Oh, no.
Back down the hole and away we went again. 7 days later, we ended up in Taiwan. We spent 3 weeks there. Finally, they put us on the Australian cruise ship, the Melbourne Maru. At the beginning of the war, they confiscated that ship, and now it was a troop carrier. And So off we went again. 7 days later, we pulled into Moji port on the northern tip of Kyushu, the second largest Japanese island. At that time, there wasn't a tunnel under the strait, and so anyway, we were ferried across to Honshu, the largest Japanese island, and the home of the Japanese capital, Tokyo. Excuse me. I've got these allergies.
Me too. Yes,
Yeah.
my allergies are quite bad right now.
Anyway.
Yes.
They stuffed us into a train and off we went north. This was late 1944 and American bombers were raising you know what all over Japan, even the railroads. So every once in a while the train would stop and they would fix the tracks. This went on for I don't know how many days. We finally ended up at the northern city of Sendai. This was a city that a few years ago was wiped out by that tsunami, if you remember.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, we were offloaded there, put on a narrow gauge railroad, and we were way up into the mountains to the town of Hosakura, Japan. And we worked there at Mitsubishi Mine Number 11 until the end of the war.
Wow.
Now, I mentioned that narrow gauge railroad because a week before the war ended, a couple B-29s came over and blasted the railroad out, and also the smelter in the camp. And there was no road up, so we had to wait 30 days while they fixed the railroad so we could get out.
Oh, no. They wouldn't give you any wood to burn in those stoves? No.
And some of the guys that worked at the smelter used to sneak at first, but then they caught on to that, and then they started inspecting them when they come in, so no more fuel. But anyway, you know, these little deals across, you know, so we start tearing them down and breaking them up and starting the fire, you know. And one time the Japanese were outside, they looked up smoke coming out of there. And they knew damn darn well we didn't have any news, so they came in there, and boy, did they raise hell, because we tore down half the stuff, and the barracks, when the wind came up, the barracks were shaking. Usually you teamed up with somebody in a prison camp because American people are a bunch of thieves. They steal anything you had, you know.
Yeah.
They'd even drink your blood, you know.
Yeah.
So you teamed up with somebody. So anyway, he knew another guy, and he knew some drivers who were driving for the Philippines. So between us and the main side, the drivers had 2 or 3 little sheds there. So he would sneak across and at night and get some gin and bring it over, and then we would sell the gin. So one evening we were sitting there, and a guy came with a cane with dark glasses. I understand you gentlemen are selling gin. Yeah, he says, well, I'd like to have some. He says, I'm in such and such a building there. I'll see you there at 5 o'clock. We went over there, and before we went, I said, oh, Bradley. I said, hey, Bradley. I unscrewed the cap. I said, have a shot, you know. I said, he's blind, he won't see you.
Oh!
we went over, I put the gin on it, I said, where's the money? He said, where's the rest of the gin?
Oh,
He just doing it so he wouldn't have to work, you know.
he was not really blind. Oh, no.
I said, okay, instead of 5 pesos, it's 4 pesos. Then the Japanese gave us regulations. Everything was, and if you do this, you will be severely beaten or even shot, you know.
Right.
And one of the things was if you're caught with liquor. So we finally says, no, it's too big of a risk, so we quit. Transferred to the main side, I finally got me a corrugated sheet, and I made a cake pan, and I used to gather up rice, soak it overnight, roll it out for flours, and I would run it over to the cook shack and bake a cake. And one day I had everything ready to go, and I didn't have any to grease the pan. So I said, anybody in the barracks here got it? Yeah, I got some. So we greased the pan over, and I took my cake down and sold it all. About an hour later, or 2 hours later, there was a big hullabaloo all over camp. Where's that little black-haired so-and-so, you know, black-bearded so-and-so, you know, and found out that there was a medical corps guy that greased the pan with castor oil.
Oh, God.
It made them all sick.
I went out of the cake business.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But when I was working building that airfield, And when we were building the revetments for the storage of aircraft, and we used to carry a basket of dirt, you know, and we made it by hand, you know. And every night before we left, we'd put in some picks and shovels in there and pass them over, you know.
Oh!
And the Japanese would scratch their heads, you know, scratch their heads. Then the monsoon started, and then it looked like I don't know, porcupines or whatever, pick handles and shovel handles.
Oh no!
People asked me, did I ever meet a good Japanese guard, you know? And I said, yeah, one time. I was on a detail, we were at Litter, we were carrying oranges to the Japanese kitchen, and I was on the back end of it. So he halted, he says, take a break, you know. So he walked over, I had a straw hat, and I grabbed 3 oranges, put it on my hat, you know. Then we started walking again, and he kept looking at me out of the side of his eye, and kept looking at me. I said, boy, I'm in trouble now. Halto, you know. He took the hat off, put 2 oranges back, put 1 orange back on my head, and whacked me on a button. He says, okay. 2, no good.
Oh!
I could have been shot. That was one of the deals if you're caught stealing.
Oh, wow.
We wore ours until it was down to rags, you know, and when they shipped us out, you know, it was what, in wintertime? Well, they gave us winter stuff, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so where you were at in Japan was a lot colder than the
Oh,
Philippines.
yeah.
Yes.
Late November. Gettysburg Address or something. So it was Memorial Day. I gave a talk at the Benson Memorial Park, and I finished with, in Flanders Field where poppies grow between the crosses row on row, they mark our place as in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, fell down, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye fail, if you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep while poppies grow in Flanders Field.
Very good.
My folks were Russian, and originally we belonged to the Russian Orthodox Church.
Oh.
But well, when I was about 10 or 11, I ended up in a foster care, and I ended up with a Catholic family. So they ran me through the first communion, and I became a Roman Catholic.
Oh, wow. Do you think that your faith was something that helped you when you were in the POW camps, or was that?
Sometimes when I'm with a religious outfit, I honestly believe that it was God's mercy that gave me the courage, the strength, and ability to serve my country, to serve the church, to serve the community, and to serve my fellow man.
Wow. Yeah.
I honestly believe that. Yeah.
So then did you help develop it out, or you sold it off, or did?
Well, it was already a development that the other outfit was selling lots, you know.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they sold them all out, you know, and it was laying there. So I bought what was left. And it must have been about 120, 40 lots, I guess.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
So I'd sell them $300 down and low monthly payments. I put a roof over a lot of people's heads that, you know, couldn't afford it, you know.
Wow.
I never foreclosed on anybody. And when I got down to the last 50 lots, I just gave them away. I wanted to get out of the real estate business.
Wow.
The reason I wanted to get out of it was 1997, I think it was. One gal from Sierra Vista was a real estate broker called me, and she says, I'm interested in your lot so-and-so. And I says, well, I'll send you all the particulars. She says, well, why don't you fax me? I said, lady, what's your language, you know? I don't know what a fax was. I said, it's time for me to get out of here.
Okay, that's enough of that. That's the end of that.
by hand.
Yeah. It started. The business started
Technology is
changing.
falling over my head.
Yeah, and now it's almost everything is done on the computer.
It's all computer.
It's all on the computer. There's very little.
It all started back in the 1990s, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I've been a realtor for 4 years. But my husband is a home builder. And we've been building homes since 2005. So since 2005, we've been building homes. Of course, the market crashed real bad in 2006 and 2007. And so we had to kind of reinvent ourselves and figure out something else to do because that was a pretty bad hit. So he let go of the building part and then he just did roofing. So he was a roofer for a while, a roofer and a home inspector. And so he's been a home inspector for about 17 years. Yeah, about 17 years. So we did roofing and home inspections, and then 4 years ago the kids were in school and so we said, it might be good to I'll go ahead and get my license and we'll get into real estate, and I've been doing it ever since, and I enjoy it, but it is very high stress.
Yeah. Especially since all the housewives got a license.
Yes, yeah. It's a pretty high stress environment.
Like in Tucson, I remember, maybe 5 or 6 years ago,